The rain hadn't stopped since they arrived. Ahmed sat quietly in the passenger seat, staring out the car window as his father parked in front of the towering hotel. The Black Rose, an old building with cracked stone walls and Gothic-style windows, loomed above them like a silent giant. A rusted sign creaked back and forth in the wind. "Here we are," his father said, forcing a cheerful tone. "Our new home." Ahmed didn't respond. He missed their old apartment, his school, his friends. But after his mother passed away, everything had changed. His father had taken a job offer in another city, eager to start over. The Black Rose offered both work and a place to stay, an opportunity too good to refuse. They stepped into the grand lobby, which smelled faintly of dust and old wood. The red carpet was faded, and the chandeliers above flickered slightly. Behind the check-in desk, no one stood. The place was silent, almost too silent. "You'll get used to it," his father said, patting Ahmed's shoulder. "You've always liked exploring, haven't you?" Ahmed looked around. The hotel felt less like a home and more like a forgotten museum. Long corridors stretched in every direction, lined with identical doors. He spotted a grand staircase and an ancient elevator with iron gates. That night, as his father went through old papers in the office, Ahmed wandered through the hallways. The lights buzzed overhead, and the carpets muffled his footsteps. He passed rooms 401, 402, and 403. Then he noticed something odd. After room 403, there was a long stretch of wall. And then room 405. But in between, a dusty and used corridor led off to the side. At its end, barely visible in the dim light, stood a single door with a tarnished brass plate. 404. He frowned. "That's not on the map," he muttered, remembering the hotel floor plan he had seen at the front desk. He walked toward the door, but just as he reached it, a gust of cold air swept through the corridor, slamming a nearby window open. The sound echoed loudly in the silence. Ahmed stepped back. The door remained closed, untouched, but he could have sworn, for just a second, that the number 404 flickered like a glitch in a screen. He turned and ran back to his room, telling himself it was just the wind. But something in his gut whispered otherwise. The next morning, Ahmed couldn't stop thinking about the strange hallway and the hidden room 404. During breakfast in the hotel's small dining area, he finally asked, "Dad, why isn't room 404 on the map?" His father paused mid-sip of coffee. "What do you mean?" "I saw a door labeled 404 down the side hallway. It wasn't on the floor plan." His father's face changed subtly. His smile stiffened. "There is no room 404. Not anymore. That part of the hotel's been closed off for years. Maintenance issues." Ahmed narrowed his eyes. "But the door's still there. That room is off limits. Do you hear me?" His father's voice was calm but firm. "Stay away from it. Ahmed, some places are better left alone." That only made him more curious. That night, as his father worked late in the office, Ahmed snuck out of their apartment and tiptoed through the quiet corridors. The air felt colder tonight, and the lights above flickered more than usual. When he reached the hallway where he'd seen the door, he stopped. There it was, room 404. He approached slowly. The door was covered in dust and had deep scratches near the handle, as if someone had tried to claw their way in or out. The brass numbers were dull and tarnished, but still clearly read. 404. He pressed his ear to the wood. At first, there was only silence. Then tap, 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 faint, repetitive, like fingernails on glass. His heart began to pound. He took a step back. But then, just as he was about to leave, he heard it, a whisper, faint, cold, and unmistakable. "Ahmed." He froze. "Let me out." His breath caught in his throat. The whisper wasn't angry or frightening. It sounded almost desperate, lonely. He looked around. No one was in the corridor. The lights at the far end buzzed like dying fireflies. He turned back toward the door, but this time the whisper was gone. Only silence. Ahmed backed away, then ran. Back in bed, under his blanket, he stared at the ceiling, eyes wide open. Who or what knew his name? The next day, Ahmed couldn't focus on anything. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the whisper again. Let me out. He had to know more. That afternoon, while his father took a call in the office, Ahmed wandered behind the reception desk. The wood was scratched and worn, and thick cobwebs hung in the corners. A row of old drawers lined the back, most stuck or empty, but one, near the bottom, slid open with a groan. Inside was a collection of faded keys. Most were labeled with room numbers, but one stood out. It was darker, older, and heavier than the rest. The brass tag attached to it read simply, 404. His hands trembled as he picked it up. That night, with the hotel silent and his father asleep, Ahmed crept back down the hallway. The key weighed heavily in his pocket. He passed the same rooms, 401, 402, 403, and stopped once more at the hidden hallway. The door to room 404 looked exactly the same. Dusty, scarred, silent. He hesitated. Was this a mistake? The whisper had sounded human, sad. But what if it wasn't? Still, curiosity pulled him forward. He slid the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. Click. The door creaked open with a slow, heavy groan. Darkness spilled out from inside the room like smoke. No lights. No sound. Just cold. Ahmed stepped inside. The air was heavy, pressing down on his chest. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind him, hard enough to shake the floor. He turned quickly, but there was no handle on the inside. He was trapped. The room was lit only by faint moonlight, leaking through a crack in the boarded-up window. Dust floated in the air like ash. Broken furniture lay scattered across the floor. And then he saw it. A large, cracked mirror stood against the far wall. It was the only thing not covered in dust. Ahmed walked toward it slowly. The reflection showed the room. And himself. But his reflection wasn't quite right. It stood straighter. Its smile was wrong, too wide, too calm. And as Ahmed stepped closer, the reflection didn't move with him. It stayed still. And then it blinked. Ahmed didn't. The reflection smiled wider and slowly raised a hand, even though Ahmed hadn't moved. His blood turned to ice. Then it spoke without sound, its lips moving with silent, perfect clarity. I've been waiting. Ahmed stumbled back from the mirror, heart hammering. His reflection, that thing, was still smiling, still staring at him with eyes that weren't quite his. It was like looking at a version of himself that had been emptied, hollowed out. He turned away, searching the room for a way out, but the door had vanished. Not just locked, gone. Only an unbroken wall stood where it had been. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper. Then he heard it, soft sobbing. A child's sobs, faint and muffled, like they were coming from behind the wall. Ahmed followed the sound of the mirror. It was no longer reflecting the room. Instead, it showed a hallway made of stone, lit by candles. And at the end of that hallway, a small girl sat on the floor, her back turned, weeping. Ahmed reached out, and his fingers passed through the surface of the mirror like water. He hesitated, then stepped through. The hallway on the other side was ancient. The stone walls were damp, and the flickering candlelight cast eerie, dancing shadows. He followed the girl's sobs, echoing louder with every step. Finally, he reached her. She looked no older than 8, with long black hair and a dusty dress. She didn't turn to look at him, even as he whispered, "Hey, are you okay?" She sniffled, then held out a small, torn notebook. Ahmed took it. Inside were pages written in childish handwriting. The name Layla was scribbled at the top. They told me not to go in room 404. But the mirror said I could see my mom again. Now I'm stuck. It took my face. It walks around the hotel like it's me. Ahmed's hands trembled as he flipped the last page. Break the mirror. That's the only way to stop it. But if you wait too long, it'll take your place. Layla finally looked up at him. She had no eyes, just black, hollow sockets and a blank, expressionless face. "It's almost ready, Ahmed," she whispered in a voice that was not her own. "You're almost empty." He turned and ran. The hallway twisted behind him, and the candles blew out one by one. He reached the end, back to the mirror, and dove through. He crashed into room 404, gasping. The mirror was glowing now, pulsing like a heartbeat, and standing before it was his reflection. But it wasn't waiting anymore. It stepped out and smiled. The reflection stepped forward, no longer behind glass. It looked exactly like Ahmed, but its movements were too smooth, too calm, like a puppet on invisible strings. Its eyes shimmered with something dark, something ancient. Ahmed backed away, reaching for anything, to defend himself. His hand closed around the heavy key to room 404, still in his pocket. The doppelganger tilted its head. "You don't need to fight," it said, voice eerily like his. "You're tired. You've lost so much. Let me carry it all. Let me live for you." "No," Ahmed growled. The thing's smile faded. Shadows gathered around it, twisting the air like smoke. "You had your chance," it hissed. "Now you're mine." The mirror behind it began to glow brighter, images flashing within it like trapped souls trying to break free. Layla's eyeless face appeared for a moment, mouthing the same message from the notebook. "Break the mirror." Ahmed charged. The creature lunged at him, but Ahmed ducked low, rolling past and swinging the key with all his strength, slamming it into the mirror. Crack! The mirror shuddered. Screams echoed from within the glass. Hundreds of voices, wailing all at once. The reflection let out a howl of pain, stumbling backward, its face glitching and flickering like a corrupted video. Ahmed struck the mirror again. Crash. The glass shattered completely, exploding into shards of light. The reflection screamed one last time as it was sucked back into the broken mirror, now nothing more than scattered pieces on the floor. Silence. The air grew still. Ahmed stood alone in the ruined room, his chest heaving. Slowly, the real door, appeared behind him. It creaked open without a sound. The next morning, sunlight filled the hotel for the first time since they arrived. The shadows were gone. Room 404's hallway no longer existed. At breakfast, his father asked, "Sleep well?" Ahmed just nodded. He went to check the hotel map again. No sign of room 404. No secret hallway. It was as if it had never been there at all. But as Ahmed passed the hallway mirror later that day, he stopped. His reflection blinked a moment too late and smiled.